What's up, guys? Welcome back to the ASAP Automotive channel. Today is another one of our great how-tos with Mike, and today we're going to be teaching you how to change your oil. Alright, so if you're watching this video today, you're probably wanting to learn how to change your own oil in your own vehicle, which is awesome because most people don't know how to do it. So today our subject is going to be the old trusty 2007 Ford Focus. So my buddy here, Lugnut, who we introduced in one of our other videos. So got his car back in here today and figured it'd be a perfect time. We got to change the oil in it, so figured why not do a how-to on it. So we've got the benefit of having a lift here, but I'm going to kind of go over a little bit of what you're going to be doing if you're going to be doing this in your driveway. So that being said, let me show you. Alright, so one of the first things you're going to want to do when you're going to change your oil is you want to go ahead and we're going to need to get the vehicle up off the ground a little bit to be able to access underneath to your drain plug and your oil filter. Now that's on some vehicles. Sometimes your actual oil filter is on top. If I get one of those in here, I'll definitely do one of those to where I can show you guys how we do that. But this one's pretty run-of-the-mill on most any vehicle. You typically got a drain plug down there and a spin-off oil filter. So this will give you a good idea, even if you don't have a Focus like this or even the same year. A lot of these are pretty cohesive with most any vehicle. So one of the first things you're going to want to do, like you said, is get it off the ground. Well, you need to make sure, first off, that the vehicle is in park if it's an automatic, or either like in first gear or reverse or whatever. If it's a manual transmission, you want to go ahead and set your parking brake, make sure it's on. Then go ahead and put you a wheel chock underneath one of the wheels, or underneath the back wheels, like a piece of wood or something like that, just for a little bit of extra insurance. You can buy the actual little metal chocks at the parts store if you want to, but a good 2x4 or 4x4 piece will work great. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and get underneath the car and find a good sturdy cross member, or either a good jacking point like here on the pinch welds or somewhere on the subframe. On your particular vehicle, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and open your service manual and look up the proper jacking points. What you're going to want is a good floor jack. This one's probably a fair bit overkill unless you got a good sized truck or something like that, but any good little 2-ton or whatever little floor jack from the parts store work great. Bottle jacks are okay, but you got such a narrow base, it gets kind of tipsy. I like to go with a good rolling floor jack. You're going to want to go ahead and jack the car up in the front. If you're lucky enough to get it on a cross member, you can just jack the whole front of the car up and put jack stands under each side, under those pinch welds or under the frame support. If you don't have that luxury like some vehicles where you don't have a good jacking point, you can just go ahead and jack up one side at a time, put a jack stand under, and go to the other side. Like I said, that's a pretty good general rule of thumb for most any vehicles. You are responsible for looking up in your owner's manual and figure out where your proper jacking points are. Take no responsibility for that. So the next thing, once you got the car up in the air, we need to go ahead and get the oil out and get the oil filter off. A good idea before you actually do all that stuff is to go ahead and, before you jack it up, I should have said this before, it's my fault guys, is pull your dipstick out, wipe it off, and then put it back in. And what you're doing there is checking where the oil level is, so you know if it's really low, you can go ahead and start tracking if you got a problem. This thing's got plenty of oil in it, probably a little over full, but doesn't look terrible. So that way, if you pull that dipstick out, wipe it off, put it back in, realize it's really low, you change the oil, 1,000 miles later you pull it again and it's really low, you've either got a leak or you're burning oil. So next thing we're going to do is go ahead, like I said, we've already got the car up, we're going to go ahead and want to get underneath and remove our drain plug to drain out our oil, and then our oil filter. So we have the luxury of a lift, so we're going to go ahead and run it up and make it easier for filming also. Alright, so we got the car in the air. And a little side note here, if you have access to a lift, I highly recommend it. It's going to make it way easier. You can easily do this on the ground. You know, don't psych yourself out of it. It can be done. But like if you're in the military or something like that, you got a local base, or the base you're stationed at has got a place where you can rent a bay or something like that. Man, I highly recommend it. They should have a manual there showing you the safe lift points and stuff for lifting a vehicle. Just makes it a world easier. But it can be done on the ground. It's no problem. Like I said, we're doing this for filming purposes. So the first thing you want to do is kind of look it over and see, you know, if you got any oil leaks or anything like that. This car is actually in really good shape. It's got like 140,000 miles on it and no real leaks except for right here. And we just figured out why. Because the drain plug is actually loose. So fortunately, we're getting this done tonight before that thing would have fell out. It's one thing that's very important. You always want to make sure that you tighten your drain plug back. So first thing we're going to do is going to go ahead and pull this thing out, let it drain out, and then we'll go ahead and pop off our oil filter. Alright, so whenever you pull this drain plug out, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to run just straight down unless you've got like no oil in it. It's going to make a good run. So wherever you get your, you know, your drain pan or whatever like that underneath it to catch the oil, you know, make sure you got it probably positioned something like this, because it's going to make a good arc coming out of there. So we got it loose. Let's go ahead and okay, this is a good time too to watch the oil that's coming out. You know, this oil is pretty black, but you know, with a car with 140,000 miles, you know, your oil might tend to be that way. As long as it's not like coming out in clumps or anything crazy like that, or like sludge, or if you got any water coming out. So if you got like a coolant leak somewhere internally in the engine, blown head gasket or cracked head or cracked block, the water is going to go down and it'll typically float to the bottom because the water is heavier than the oil, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyways, you pull the drain plug out and you'll get water out, so that's a bad sign. But in this case, we're good here. So like I said, good thing to check for, you know, look at your oil as it comes out. So go ahead and let that drain for a minute. Another thing you guys can do too, that'll help you out a little bit with the oil draining out a bit faster, is you can actually take your oil cap loose or pull your dipstick out, and it'll allow it to vent out the air. I didn't do it this time. I mean, it still come out pretty good. It's not like you have to, but it definitely helps. So now you don't have to let the thing drain every single drop out. Really makes no difference. So as long as you're down to a good little dribble like that, go ahead and put our plug back in. And unlike the previous Genius, we're going to actually tighten it down. Now, there are torque specs out there for drain plugs. You know, normally they're around, somewhere around 10, 17 foot-pounds, maybe somewhere in that ballpark. Normally you just want to get it good and snug. You don't want to get crazy, especially on an aluminum pan like this. You can crack it, and there's really no putting any inserts or retapping it. Most of the time, you normally just got to replace the oil pan, and that's no fun. So let's round it a little bit, but go ahead and just snug it down. You just want to seat the gasket good. You don't have to like over tighten it or ham fist it, and that's good. So we'll go ahead and take a little bit of brake clean, spray this off so we're good and clean, and that way we can tell if we have any leaks. We'll know because they'll be fresh. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get our oil filter off. So the possibilities with tools are almost endless for this. So there's everything from these you know, strap filter wrenches to the adjustable rubber straps. There's even chain strap wrenches out there, which is really kind of for much bigger, crazier filters. Or you have oil filter pliers like this. Really just depends on your application. There's even cute little sockets that go over the end. You see how there's a bunch of little flat spots on there, and it'll fit over, and you can put like a 3/8 drive ratchet in there and spin it off. Really just comes down to personal preference. So when you're at the parts store or online, you know, getting your oil and oil filter or something like that, if you're on Amazon, normally it'll, like, if you buy a certain oil filter, it'll normally say people also ordered, and you can see what kind of filter wrench, you know, fits it. Or if you're at a parts store, just see what kind of strap wrench they've got. You know, normally like this with a good adjustable head or pliers, either one, and you can get it off. So let's go ahead. In this case, I'm going to be using these pliers, and go ahead and just get on like this. I almost used the next size up. Okay, so don't freak out if you crush the filter a little bit. I mean, you're not going to be reusing it, so go ahead and make sure your drain pan's underneath. Would highly recommend some kind of black gloves like this. Keeps all the oil off your hand, and oil is going to be hot too, and just makes cleanup way easier. So you buy a set of these at the parts store or online, black nitrate gloves. So we'll go ahead and spin this loose a little bit. And normally we'll get, yeah, there we go, a little bit of oil coming out. Let it just kind of run off for a second. Now, if your filter's like horizontal or leaned up this way, like some of the older Toyota 4-cylinders, you're probably not going to really have hardly any oil coming out of it because it's all drained out of it. So, but see here, we got most of it run off. Oh, and there we go. Did I get the camera? No. So that one didn't have very many threads on it. So be careful when you're spinning it off. You might get a nice little surprise, but we're good. It didn't make too much of a mess. So, go ahead and get a rag. So, this is a very important part. If you're not paying attention to any rest of the video, pay attention to this part, please. Get a visual where the oil filter mounts. Don't just assume that when you pulled your oil filter off that it had a gasket on it that you're good. Somebody previous could have double gasketed it and somehow miraculously it didn't blow out and lose all the oil. But you can see here, we've got no gasket on there, we're good. So we're gonna come in, go ahead and wipe it good and clean. I don't have to really worry about the outside ring there, just where the filter seals it on itself. So now we know we've got a good clean surface there. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and take our oil filter, take some fresh oil from the oil that we're about to put in, take you a little dab, and just run you some around this seal. You're going to thank yourself for it the next time you go to change your oil, because if you don't, this little rubber seal is going to cook itself on there. It's going to be a nightmare getting that freaking oil filter off. So we're going to go ahead and dab a little bit on here, then we're going to go ahead and screw it back on. All right. And that's all you need, guys. Just a good film on there. You don't need it running all over the place, but like I said, that'll keep it from burning on there. And while we're at it, if you're doing this, you know, this is the lifeblood of your engine. Oil filter is just as much as important as the oil. Using a quality oil filter is just as important. No, I am not sponsored by Wix or anybody for that matter. I'd love to be. If you guys want to, give me a shout. I'll gladly take promotions. But anyways, use a good quality filter like a Wix or Purolator or something like that. Using a cheap, filter like Fram, yes, I'm going to call them out. Their stuff's garbage. Maybe at one time they were great, but it doesn't take much to, you can see online where people have cut them open and you can see the quality difference. So, yeah, use a good Wix filter or something like that. It's well worth, like if you go to O'Reilly's, it's like a $2 upgrade for their oil change special. Well worth the money. Their microguard stuff's okay. I'm just a big fan of Wix. Their stuff's quality. They've been around for years. Never once had an issue. So because this is not just filtration, it's also got a check valve in here with this little rubber diaphragm. All that stuff is so much better built in a filter like this. You don't have to go crazy with their XP and all that crazy stuff. If you want, more than welcome to. You know, the Can-In filters are cool, they're nice, but just a good quality all-around filter. All my GM stuff, I use AC Delco. I'm just that way. My Corvette, my Tahoe, all those. Honda is one. My wife's Accord, which actually used to be my car, I use nothing but Honda filters. I don't know why. It's something about those J Series, K Series motors that they work. You don't seem to have the issues with the Honda filters. It's well worth it. You can pick them up from your Honda dealer pretty cheap or online. So that being said, let's go ahead and I'm going to shut up now and get our oil filter back on. So I just want to go ahead and, of course, hand start it. You're going to tighten it by hand too. So make sure you don't cross any threads. Just take your time. Just let it free spin until it's good and snug. And then just give it about a third of a turn after it gets snug. It will get tighter. So, you know, just make sure it's snug, and that's it. You don't have to get ham-fisted or crazy. You're going to hate yourself for it later. So that's good and tight. We're going to go ahead and wipe that off, and we'll go ahead. In our case, we're going to go and let the vehicle back down. But if you're got it on jack stands, go ahead and leave it up, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. Now that we've got our oil drained out, our drain plug back in and tightened down, we reused the gasket. That one was perfectly fine. You know, inspect yours, take a look at it. If it's all boogered up, make a run to the parts store and get you another one. Not in the vehicle that you have no oil in, but anyways, got that back on, got the oil filter on. The next thing we're going to do is we're back topside now. And we're going to go ahead and start getting our new oil back in. We're going to pull our dipstick out so we got some ventilation. We're going to go ahead and find our oil fill cap and take it loose. Most of these either just have like a quarter turn come out or they thread out, one or the other. It should come off pretty easy. So put it somewhere. And please, for the love of God, don't forget to put it back in. I had a customer in here the other day, and this guy literally has done it twice in one day. He said, how you do that, I don't know. But anyways, his engine bay was just covered in oil. So make sure you put it back in afterwards. Anyways, got our dipstick out. Your dipstick should be normally pretty easy to find. You can check your owner's manual if you have to. 9 times out of 10, this thing's going to be yellow. Some of the European stuff, which I'm not a fan of anyways, will be some funky orange or something like that. Anyways, most of the time it'll be yellow. You can see it pretty easy, or black and yellow. Little Wiz Khalifa going on there. Anyways, pull it out. We're going to go ahead and get a good clean funnel and go ahead and set it down in here and start pouring the oil in. So what you want to do, guys, is beforehand figure out what the capacity is of your vehicle. Most any vehicle like this, a little 4-cylinder, is going to be around 4.5 quarts, maybe 5. Most of the time you can get an oil change special with a 5-quart jug, which will be plenty for this one. Because you don't want to overfill it. Overfilling an engine with oil is just as bad, if not worse, than it being low on oil. So, because it can slosh it around, get a bunch of air in it, and the same thing can happen as having no oil. So what you want to do is, if you look up and you realize that your oil capacity is like, let's say 4.5 quarts, most of these jugs have a nice, cute little clear indicator on the back, like this one here. The quarts on this side, so you got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5's up here somewhere. So so we'll go ahead and put, we know this one's about 4.5 quarts, so we're going to put 4 quarts in here and see where we're at. So we're going to go ahead and pour into down to this line and then check our engine oil. Alright guys, so we went in, threw our 4 quarts in, and we're going to go ahead and pull our dipstick out. Now the car is level. If you've got your car on jack stands or something, you'll have the front up a little bit. So if your dipstick's in the front, it's going to read a little low. If your dipstick's on the back side, it might read a little high. And you want to go ahead and account for that. So as long as it's close, once you get it back down, you can go ahead and do your final top off. But the key here is to get it close. I'm going to go ahead and put the dipstick back in. Go ahead and remove it. And 9 times out of 10 on your dipstick, you're going to have either a couple little dots, like a low mark or a full mark, and then some hash area. So what you want is somewhere in that ballpark on the low side. Like I said, if your vehicle, if you're on jack stands, your front end's up, and if your dipstick's on the front like this, you would probably want it closer to the bottom end. So when you let it down, the way the fluid's going to go, it's going to come up, because like you said, you don't want to overfill it. If your dipstick's in the back, it's going to be vice versa. You're going to want to be higher up towards that upper mark. So we're good there. We're almost right on the money. We're going to go ahead and put it in. And then what you want to do is go ahead and remove your funnel, put your oil cap back on, and we're going to go ahead and start the car, run it, and go ahead and get bottom side and check for any leaks. Don't just assume because you tighten it down and all that, there could be some manufacturing defect with the filter, who knows what. So get back underneath there while it's running and go ahead and check for any leaks like that. That's why we did all the safety precautions with the e-brake, the wood chalk, all that kind of stuff. And when you go ahead and start it, make sure if it's a manual, pull it back into neutral and then start it. So we're gonna go ahead and start it up and then check for leaks. All right, so we went ahead and fired it up, checked underneath for any leaks while it's under pressure. We're good. So give it a second or two, let the oil drain back down in the block. And so you go ahead and pull out dipstick, go ahead and wipe it off. And like I said, give it a few seconds, let all that oil drain. If you go in there and check it too quick, you might think you're low on oil and you're not actually. So. All right, so we're a touch low. We're on the bottom end. We're still in the safe zone, but we're gonna go ahead and put about another half a quart in there and we should be fine. And yep, right on the money. Cool. Go ahead and put it back in. So at this point, you can go ahead, bring your vehicle back up, just the reverse process. Jack it up a little bit, take your jack stands out, release it back down. Don't forget about your wheel chocks in the back too. And another thing too, to give you a good reminder, you might have some kind of oil maintenance reminder or something in your vehicle. Normally 9 times out of 10 you can find that in your service manual. Almost every freaking vehicle is different. Even a certain model vehicle might differ from year to year in the process. Depends on the trim level. If you got a higher end, you might do it through some touchscreen menu or through the odometer button. So this one doesn't have anything like that, but so just look up your particular vehicle and you can find the reset procedure for it. If not, if you don't have anything like that, you got an older vehicle, you can go ahead and just get you an oil change sticker. You can get it at any parts store. They'll normally give you some when you get your oil, and go ahead and write your mileage in there. This being a standard oil, I normally do them about every 3,000. Good synthetic oil about every 5,000. So that being said, guys, that's pretty much it. All right, guys, and that's it. There's really not a whole lot to to changing your oil. What you can use, if you got your drain pan, you can actually use your old jug if it's empty and pour your old oil on that and take it to your local parts store or recycling facility along with your oil filter. You don't want to just throw that stuff away. That's just wrong. But like I said, guys, that's a wrap. I believe in you. I guarantee you can do this. You just take a little bit of time. Don't be afraid of it. Any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. We're planning on doing a ton more of these videos, so we might have something else that you'd like to see. And until the meantime, remember, guys, stock is not an option.